Welcome to the Regenerate Your Reality webinar series, all about regeneration in every way. I'm so excited to be here today with two amazing sisters and healers and birth keepers and medicine women that are living regeneration in so many ways. And we're going to focus in on holistic health and postpartum and healing ourselves naturally through herbal remedies and different techniques to really thrive after giving birth naturally and home birthing. So I'm in that portal, just very close to giving birth. And so it's perfect timing to have these sisters share their wisdom with us. And yeah, I'd love to pass it over to Amanda and Weis. Maybe you can first share a little bit about your backgrounds and your work, and then we can dive into holistic health and postpartum.
We are Amanda and Wies. We're sisters. We're both mothers together we have four. I have one girl, a 3-year-old, and Amanda has 3 children. And for the last year or so, we've been accompanying women in their postpartum time, especially, with nutrition and herbalism, massage, and some education as well on how to go through this profound transformational process. And through this time, we have created a little project that's called Hermanas Madres. You can follow us on Instagram, and we especially share as well, like different traditional techniques and different traditional medicines. We both did a postpartum doula course with a Colombian teacher who's a birth worker, and Amanda has been, well, she can tell her part, but yeah, working with birth for a few more years. And I have had the opportunity to accompany her in a few different experiences. And I am personally a visual artist and also share, healing ceremonies with Sweat Lodge and different things. And I'm very passionate about, accompanying women, especially in this transition time. And I think it's such a sacred time as well. In mainstream society, we are so used, women are so used to having to do the postpartum period by themselves, often, isolated or with very little information. It's such an intense time of transition. So yeah, personally, I really believe that it's important to have company, to have information, and to create a support system, which is one of the things that we really focus on as well, helping women create a community support system, also helping educate, the people that will support the woman. And yeah, it's a very interesting and important topic because the postpartum time is something that can affect or will affect women and mothers for the rest of their lives. There's such a big physiological change in this time that when it's not taken care of properly, it can even, bring health problems later on in life, and also in, the connection with the child. So it's a very, very specific and important moment that really needs attention. So that's what, really called me personally to also, work in this field and work with women and create space so that we can do that in a more harmonious way and create more, what you're saying, also regenerative ways of mothering and of healing from this powerful ceremony that's birth. I'll pass it over to Amanda.
All right. So my name is Amanda and I am Visa's sister. I have 3 kids, and in my own postpartums, I had a variety of experiences from, in the first one, feeling quite alone, um, feeling quite confused, feeling a lot of things and not really having as much support as maybe is needed or is, beneficial during that time. And then having my other 2 where I almost did it the other way, and this is something I always like to share with women is as much as you plan for the birth, you're going to need to plan just as much or more for your postpartum, right? Because the modern society is so focused on the birth, and even within spiritual and conscious community, it's all about the birth portal, the birth space. Where are you going to give birth? Are you going to free birth? Are you alone? Are you with a midwife? Water birth, not water birth. And so much is about the birth, but the postpartum is the time where that portal and everything that happened during that portal and every door that was opened during that portal is going to be integrated into the mother and into the baby. And so it takes a long time, integration. It's not a one day thing like the birth is, right? So that part for me is like so important. And like Wies was saying, really understanding how much of a long-term effect this has. I mean, the importance of the relationship between the mother and the child, between the mother and the partner, right? Um, and just the ripple effect that a healthy postpartum has on mothers and their lives and their futures and their children's future, it's just incredible. So I always share my story with my last child. I focused so much on the postpartum, and I had the most amazing postpartum experience, with so much support and so much love and just feeling so overflowed with care and support and everything that that's something you take with yourself for the rest of your life, and just feeling a way that you can integrate the motherhood in such a profound experience. So I really believe, and I'm like Wies was saying, I've worked with birth, I've worked with pregnant women in postpartum for a few more years, maybe like 4 or 5. And I'm also a naturopath. Um, I do a lot of different therapies and things, and I'm an herbalist. And Visa and I also together we work in my brand that's called Salud Salvaje, where we have herbal products, and a lot of our products are very beneficial for pregnancy, for birth, for postpartum, because that's what we've kind of been surrounded by ourselves. So you obviously attract those kind of plants and those kinds of people as well, right? Um, so yeah, it's kind of embedded in everything we do. I also homeschool my children, so they're always around. So that's also a little disclaimer. If one of my kids comes running in the room, it might happen. It can happen. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're coming from, and it's really, that's the passion piece that I think also is really important in this work, and for us seeing our women, that we've seen in their postpartum process, and then seeing them 3 months later with their babies at the beach, and it's just, oh, it like warms the heart so much to see just the process, right? Because the birth is the opening of the doors, but then, like I said, the integration process is so much longer, and having the right support, having the right accompaniment, having the right space and the time to have that integration process, it's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah. Vies, do you want to start, or do you want to Jean, you want to say something?
Oh, it's so beautiful to have you both on here and speak your wisdom. And yeah, let's dive into some of the wisdom around postpartum and holistic health.
Well, we actually wanted to ask you as well. So far, in your pregnancy, preparing for birth, preparing to receive your baby, maybe we wanted to ask you just to share a little bit what your family, what your mom, what women close to you have shared about the postpartum time specifically.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I feel like in society, postpartum isn't so focused on. It's like, oh, I think most people have maternity leaves that are so short, and they are already thinking about childcare in, some, elsewhere world. And my mom passed 7 years ago. So there's also, in this pregnancy process, I've gone through a lot of grief around not actually knowing or being able to speak to her about this time. My dad doesn't quite remember everything, and he wasn't experiencing it all. So I think, you know, I've spoken to my grandma and my aunts about their processes, and yeah, it's just, I think we have to create our own reality and our own way of what feels comfortable for us. And I've had a very easy pregnancy, I feel, because I have a regenerative lifestyle. I'm able to really tap into my intuition. I've done a lot of work around my own healing and traumas, and I feel that that has also helped me with this whole process. We were calling in a babe. We made a babe from love. So, I didn't really have morning sickness. I felt fatigued in the first trimester, but I just kept my self-love rituals, and that has just carried through to just feeling really energized and excited. And I've prepared for postpartum by having a bless away and asking all the sisters that surround me to bring meals to freeze, because I was thinking, I don't really want people to show up at my house. I don't want a meal train. I want to be in my nest and bubble for as long as I need. And I've also prepared by having assistants take over all my work for at least 4 months and training them. And I feel really good about just kind of stepping back and taking this time all for the babe and for the family, and to just heal naturally, and to, yeah, just love on the babe that's coming through. And yeah, so I feel like really good about it all, and I'm excited.
Amazing. So good to hear, also just like that awareness that you already have in all of that. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit is like why postpartum, right? Why this focus? I feel like we already mentioned a few things. But specifically that, I'm just repeating a little bit, like the long-term effects, right, of like health, of hormonal health, of energy, availability, of connection with the child. Like all of this is just like so affected by how our postpartum is. So we have had the opportunity to also go in a little bit of like different traditional practices. All over the world there are so many practices. The women have always really supported each other, even in this mainstream time. There's like so many traditional communities that continue to support each other during this time, especially with proper nutrition, with different rituals, with different body work. And I think that one thing that that like in many traditions comes up is the nesting. So that's like one of the things that I think we're going to start with. Why the nest and how long the nest, and like what all of that is about. So Amanda's going to talk a little bit about the cuarentena. This is also a very Mesoamerican tradition that a lot of birth workers from this part of the world talk about. And so yeah, maybe Amanda can start with la cuarentena.
Okay, yeah. So here in Central America and in most of Latin America, the cuarentena means literally 40 days, right? The 40 days. Um, And in other cultures, it's referred to as the nest. And this time is a time where mother and baby, especially, and in some families, the father will also join in on the nest. But in some families, the dynamic is just, dad is also needed to, go to the supermarket or do other things. So dad comes in and out of the nest, and really the mother and the baby stay in the nest. And so the nest, it's the home, right? The nest is the first, I mean, really, there's no time limit. You can do it however long you want, of course. But the traditional way, the recommendation is to do it as many weeks as you were. So if you were pregnant 38 weeks and the baby was born a little bit early, you would do 38 days minimum. And if the baby was born 42 weeks, right, then you would do 42 days minimum. Of course, you can go longer or shorter. Um, the concept of the nest is really based on first, primarily, and this is something that a lot of people understand a little bit quicker, is the health of the baby, right? When you're in the nest, when you're in this protected bubble, the baby is going to thrive because it doesn't really need anything else than its mother. On an energetic level, the baby doesn't have its own aura yet, doesn't have any energetic like protection the way adults or children that are a little bit older already have. So the baby is fully dependent energetically on the mother. And so having them in the nest and, next to mom is going to be energetically the healthiest place for that baby to be. Of course, also in the modern world, we're talking about all these illnesses and whatever, like it's just better to be in the home. Like Jean was sharing, not having too many visitors and things like that. That's kind of ideal for the nest. So what we recommend when talking about the nest is that you have a space, a physical space where mother and baby are for the first 40 days-ish, and that we minimize as much as possible visitors. And primarily, this comes from the energetic protection, right? So ideally, this space is going to be super energetically clean, protected, and that's going to keep the baby super healthy so that the baby can grow and thrive and, get really strong. But then there's also the element of the mother. And this is something that a lot of people who talk about the nest don't talk about so much. So it's important to know that the nest is also going to have so many benefits for the mother because the mother is going through this huge hormonal shift that is super sensitive. And when we look at postpartum traditions, we talk about that during the birth process, what happens is that our bones, I mean, this happens physiologically, right? Our bones actually separate, like our bones actually open. And during the postpartum time, our whole body is coming back to its position, right? The bones are slowly moving back. But as those bones are open, that means that we're super vulnerable. That means that energetically we are completely open as well, right? So energies can come into the mother space. I always like to share one story that happened to me. I had a really good friend of mine visit me during one of my postpartums, and she brought food, and it was all well intentioned, but she made one comment. I don't even remember what it was, but it was one comment that just felt like she had stuck a knife into my heart. And it was nothing. She hadn't said anything terrible at all, but it was something that felt so intense for me at that moment. And so just, reiterating what Jean was sharing about having as least people possible in your postpartum bubble, because you don't know how you're going to be feeling hormonally, what's going to be, right? What's going to be your trigger in that moment, what you're going to feel could hurt you. You don't know. And it's better to protect your space because for your breastfeeding journey, for your sleeping, for all those basic needs that are, the focus of the postpartum, really, because postpartum is about sleeping, eating, cleaning. That's like what we need to get, focused on so that baby sleeps, mama eats, baby breastfeeds, and and that's the focus. But how simple a little comment, a tiny little comment that was probably not even, with a bad intention. It was just a side comment. But it affected me to the point where my emotional body was, so out of it that I was walking around the room angry, and, it just got to me. So I always say, like, we don't know how it's going to affect us when people visit. So really protecting that space and only having people invited into the space that are going to be there in support of you, and that are going to be there in support of what you're doing in that space and everything, is really, really important. So the nest, it's really that concept of staying and giving time. And the other thing that's important about the nest, because a lot of women, especially in the modern world, they think the sooner I come out, the more proof it is that me and my baby are doing super well, because we're coming out sooner. So we must be really healthy because he was born 10 days ago. Yeah, but I'm at the farmer's market. We're doing good, right? So that's a concept that, I've also seen a lot, and it's a little bit sad because it's like that modern concept that's, the other way around. Because when we're in the postpartum, I think it's important to understand that this is such a sacred time and it's so short. Like when you're in it, it feels eternal. It feels so long. But once you're out of it, it's like that was it. It was 40 days and it's over. And your baby is never going to have those sweet little hands anymore. Like those hands grow so fast and those little feet grow so fast, and so really taking the time of the timelessness. I like to call the postpartum time the time without time. It's the time that doesn't have time. And so just letting the nest be that time of timelessness, letting it be, and just soaking in every one of those seconds that you have without any other commitments. And like Jean was sharing, of course, it's a blessing and a privilege to be able to do what you're doing and saying, I'm passing on all the work and I'm doing, and I'm creating this space. It's a blessing and a privilege, but it's also a responsibility and a choice, right? And so really setting that intention, making that choice to gift yourself those first weeks of just existing with baby, it's the best.
Yeah, I also think that it's like a very interesting time because it's also a time where so many people are curious about you, Like it's also like I think that's another thing to like, that I feel like the cuarentena or the concept of this is really helpful for, because all of the people that know you and love you and like are around you, are want to know and want to know and want to see and want to meet baby and want to see how you're doing. And like Amanda said, like often with the best intentions, or like oftentimes like family will want to come and see, and then people will want to be like, oh, but wait, you should hold baby like this, or like you should, baby's crying, which is completely natural, and someone will come in and be like, why is your baby crying, and like you should be like doing this, and you're the only one that knows what to do. Nobody knows better than the mother. So yeah, it's important to explain as well to the close family, what your vision is and what you want for that postpartum time. And especially because the people that are close to us, want to be close, and it's a respectful, sharing, especially about that. It's like also a traditional way of postpartum care. I think helps people understand and respect that time, even if it's not part, of what they're used to. And so there, I think it's also really important in the time of pregnancy, especially to be able to communicate this with the close-knit family, and also see like what is the way, explain to them like what is the way that they can support. Maybe I don't want you next to me with my baby and all over us, but I need help in the house, or I need help doing shopping, or there's even people that have you know, family and friends come over without even going into the bedroom where the mama and baby are. You know, you could be in the room with your baby, and people could come into the house and do your laundry and wash. You know, I mean, you know, maybe, you know, some women will have someone that can do that for them and have someone paid that do that, you know, but there's also people that like would then just have their family do that, which is also another option. And also it is important to give the people that are close by like a role if possible, you know, because people want to be there. So if they can help out in any way, which whether it's bringing you, you know, a brownie from the farmer's market without even coming into your bedroom and just leaving it at the front door, or you know, doing your laundry or shopping or whatever. I think that, you know, especially if there's like family close by, it's nice to give them a role somehow in that time so that they do feel that they can support you. And what we also have done with women that have family far away, for example, is invited the family to, for example, send some money so that people that are there for support can go and buy them a favorite meal at a restaurant, or you know, like have people that are far away, you know, especially here there's so many people that maybe have family in different countries, you know, finding a way that the family can also support from a distance is also something that we've done with women before, and like supported families to be able to, you know, send their help through different means. And yeah.
I want to just add one little thing here as a mom of multiples, you know. There is a thing that also, like, the first child is such a different experience than any child after that, because with the first child, all of what we're talking about right now is a possibility if you're well organized, right? Like, you can have the help in the house, you can have the meals dropped off, you can have all that support without being interrupted in your nest bubble. And then I just want to mention this for those that are listening that are, you know, maybe pregnant with their second or a third or, you know, more children, that it's also really important to know that the more kids you have, the more support you're going to need in the postpartum. And so maybe the bubble won't be as closed as it was with the first, right? Um, but that, you know, people coming in and out to support with older children, like I'm just thinking back at, you know, my third, and it was very hard for me to not have people over. And of course I had, you know, separate spaces where I could like retire with the baby into like a more closed space. But, you know, my other kids were 3 and 7 and they also needed me, you know? And so then you have those people coming into your space, and that's also valid and also beautiful and also really, really awesome when you have the right person. So when you have people that you know are going to be in your space, that's just like an added element of really talk to them during the pregnancy, of how you want your postpartum time to be. You know, like if you know that you're going to have people, for example, mothers, you know, that want to come and support and be the grandmother that's there and da da da, like really talk to them before and set your limits really clear, set your boundaries, like, hey, I do this differently than how you did it, or I want to try this differently or whatever, you know. And of course that's easier when you're pregnant with your second or third because you've already done it once, so you kind of already know what you want to do or how you want to do it. And I know that this isn't relative for you right now, Jean, but I'm just saying it because I know that maybe in the recording, some mothers of more than one child will be listening. So just to know that, you know, really being clear with how you envision your postpartum when you're pregnant with your second or third or whatever number of child, that's going to add, you know, that the support that's coming in that you're going to need because you're going to need it, that you can really be clear with your needs and your limits and, you know, that balance there.
All right, amazing. Yeah, so now we wanted to start with topic nourishment. So that's like one of the big things, right, that we need in postpartum. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna start sharing a little bit about the food Amanda will go a little bit more in depth about herbal remedies and herbal support. But so yeah, food is such an important thing in postpartum, right? Because it's the way that we're gonna feel nourished on like our physical and spiritual and all levels. It's like this should be this like pleasure, that we can receive. And like Amanda was mentioning before, like the physiological shift, right, of like the opening of the bones, like during pregnancy, all digestive organs like move up. During the postpartum, everything is like coming back into a more non-pregnant body. So there's a lot of movements in the organs. We really need the two of the really important things that need to be taken into account when we make food and when we're receiving food is that the food is warming and that the food is easy to digest. So the body of the woman needs a lot of warmth. So the way that we do this is like with a lot of soups, broths. Broths are a really, really powerful way to like bring that warming and healing energy into the body. We have a little list of meals that we recommend. For breakfast, for example, like things like oats, are really good, especially the first few days. Smoothies, we recommend that the smoothies, especially if you're in more colder climates, are like without ice and without like super cold things. But we're here in heat, so you're gonna crave cold things, but you're gonna try to not have like too many iced anything. You're going to want to try to keep warmth in the body. So especially in pregnancy, we're in full heat. And then in postpartum, when all that energy comes out, like the body is in an energetic space of being cold. So we need to bring that warmth back. So one way to do that is with the food. So like with oats, a warm porridge type things in the mornings are really good. Then we recommend a lot of broths and a lot of soups. So this can be like creams. Pumpkin, for example, is a really good vegetable to have. It's really good for breastfeeding. It like stimulates milk. It's also very nourishing, very easy to digest. And also bone broths. If you eat meat, bone broth is like super power food, a lot of magnesium, so it's going to allow the body to relax and allow the body to to surrender into that healing space. We a lot of fruit, which is also easy to digest. Another really important thing is that you have food available almost all the time. So you're going to want to have these foods prepared. You're going to want to have the frozen things that you can easily heat up and have people prepare for you, but also, if possible, have people make home cooked meals. And at the same time, you're going to want to have a bunch of snacks available that you'll just have next to your bed that are easy to grab and easy to just take, because you're breastfeeding. So you literally can't stand up even to get yourself a glass of water. So you're going to need things that you can just grab with your hand. And you're going to have moments where hunger just hits like crazy. You're just going to want to eat a cow from like, you're not going to feel hunger, and then you're going to want to eat a whole cow like all of a sudden. So you're going to want to make sure that there's like a bunch of different snacks available. We also have a little list. We'll send you a little list over of like our recommendations of like types of snacks. But a lot of things that are good to have is like energy balls, things with dates. Prunes are really good. They're high in iron and they're easy to digest. Different fruits, and and so we'll send the list over of like the specific foods. What is also really important to take into account is that there's a lot of things that we should avoid because of this healing process of the digestive system, and because the everything is like reaccommodating itself. We need to have foods that we can't have foods that will inflame or create gases. This is going to help the mother, but also help the baby a lot. So a lot of the problems that we've seen women have, with colics or even like just pains that the women have can be avoided by avoiding certain foods. So the foods that we really recommend to like wait on, especially for the whole cuarentena, ideally, would be legumes, so like beans and lentils and chickpeas. Like that's not ideal because it can create inflammation and it's a little bit harder to digest. And other things such as like broccolis, kale, cauliflower. There's dairy products are also a good thing to like wait with. Nuts and seeds, they can be integrated during the first 40 days, but it's also good to start slow with these things because they're all things that are kind of hard to digest. So it's really important to think about like hydration as well, like when you're eating, to make things that more easily digestible. The way that you can support is with hydration, so a lot of teas. We recommend to have like broths or teas even like just before eating. So before you eat, just have like some warm tea or a warm broth so that you can start the digestive system slow and then bring more solid foods in. And yeah, I think that like as a first introduction to the food. So important thing is like to just takeaways, warm and easily digestible.
Yeah, so I just want to add to what Wies was saying that recently I saw this thing on Instagram about how many marathons or how many calories a woman in birth burns in relationship to like marathons and I don't know what, and breastfeeding as well. And so just I think it's really important for women to understand that they are like burning so many calories during this time. So like the amount of food that they need is insane. To some women, it's going to feel crazy. It's going to feel crazy to be that hungry or to eat that much. But one of the things that one of our teachers said during our course was that in the modern world, more than half of women in their postpartum time are malnourished. And so one of the ways that we can see this is, for example, with like a super late return of the menstrual cycle, or like, women being super skinny or being super fatigued, or, these kind of things in the postpartum time. And it's food. You just need to eat more. And of course, you need to eat good quality food, right? So like eat well and eat a lot. And you can avoid these kind of that could affect, I don't know, for some women it could affect your fertility for a second or next pregnancy, or it could affect, your hormonal health, or it could affect just how you feel on a daily basis because you're going to feel tired all the time because you're not eating enough, right? So all those things, like it's just really important to know how important it is to really nourish and to really eat all day long during the postpartum time, And like Wies was saying, this is something that a lot of women can't like wrap their head around until they're in that space where it's like, oh, you really can't move. Like you're really laying there and you're sitting there with a baby and like you're not going to get up for the next hour or 2 hours, right? Like you want to go to the bathroom and it's like not physically possible right now. Or you want to eat something or you need a glass of water and you can't physically get up right now to go get it. Right? I mean, let's say you physically could, but it is so ideal not to. It is so ideal for you and the baby and like the adaptation with breastfeeding and all of that to not have to get up. So I remember in my postpartum, my partner coming in and being like, hey, do you need anything? Like, do you need some water or whatever? And me being like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I was laying with my baby next to me. And then 5 minutes later, my baby starts crying, needs to breastfeed. I put my baby on the breast, and within 30 seconds, I felt like I was dying of dehydration. And so I'm shouting, mi amor, get me water. Like I need it now, so with that, what Vis was saying, like making sure that you always have a little snack or a bottle of water on your bedside table so that you don't get to that point, it's so, so, so key. And it's going to help with so many things because, a huge part of breastfeeding is going to be your nutrition and your hydration as the mother and having a healthy breastfeeding journey, right? So I'm going to get a little bit into the herbs. So first, I want to say, oh, sorry,
Can I ask
go
a
ahead.
question?
Yeah.
In terms of the beans and legumes, even if you soak them extra, you still
I
wouldn't
mean,
recommend it.
our personal experience with women is especially in the first week or 10 days, like completely avoid them is going to give you so much peace.
It's
Because
not worth it.
we've seen woman after woman just having colicky babies because they said, "Oh, but a little bit of lentil soup and I'm soaking the lentils and and it's just colicky baby, colicky baby." And the moment we stop with the legumes and we do some teas to support the digestive, like colics are gone, mom feels better, so in the at least the first 10 days we really recommend avoid completely. Personally, myself and my babies, I never had like a hard time after the 10 days with legumes, with chickpeas, with beans, with nuts, seeds, with cauliflower, broccoli. Like I ate all of that during my postpartum because personally it worked for me and my baby. But the moment you see your baby's like a little bit more colicky or crying, more than what's normal, let's say, like the first thing to look at is the food. And so personally, like from our experience, we recommend, especially the first 10 days, really try to avoid it all. And then if you see that your baby is sensitive, you just have to like keep going. And of course, there's going to be space for trying again and seeing how the baby reacts and trying again and that process of kind of reintegrating different foods, for sure.
And we also once had an experience with a mother that she herself went through like 4 days of intense pain. And it was very intense. Like it was very intense for her. It was the first week, and she had had a lot of lentil. Like we didn't work with her before the postpartum. Like we came in like, or before the birth. So we didn't have a chance to like support her with the prepping in that way. But she went through like 4 days of intense pain, and we figured out that it had to do with the lentils. Like she was having a lot of gases. She's like, it was just so much pain. So I think it's just worth it to avoid it, and then, like Amanda said, slowly integrate. I feel like sometimes as well, like we're so, like there's like this norm that a baby is crying so much, and it sometimes has to do with these things, but in the end, people are like, oh yeah, it's normal that he's crying, or it's normal that they have colics. All babies have colics, well, it's actually something that we can really avoid. A baby can be in peace. A baby can be in total peace. A baby doesn't have to necessarily cry all the hours that we think, or it's normal that babies are crying because of their colics. And so I think that that's where like the awareness of avoiding these things really helps. Like I can say that I avoided almost everything, and I had been not a crying baby for like the whole month. My baby was chill, like chilling out. And like that's what we want. We want babies to be entirely relaxed. This is the first time that they feel any sort of sensation of digestion, in the belly, they're just receiving the perfect amount of nutrition without having to digest anything, without having to taste anything, without having to do any work for it. They have to work at this time. They're working hard, like they're like, for the first time having to like do something for their own survival. And so like making that as easy as possible for them is, I think, such a gift. And also for the mother, like because the digestive system is in such an intense transition, because you just had like a whole, huge movement, like having easy digestible things is like really, really ideal. And that's where the broths are like super powerful. So if you're gonna also have fish or meat, you know, proteins are super important for like healing the tissue and giving you stability as well, like in your body, grounding. So you know, if you know, there's also people that are, you know, vegan or vegetarian. I was mostly vegetarian during my postpartum. But I started with bone broths like a year later, because I was like, oh my God, I like need like some extra. But something that for vegetarian people or vegan people, for example, is really good in broths is like miso soups, and like that gives a lot of minerals as well.
And
Mushrooms are
seaweed.
really good. Seaweed, mushrooms, like mushrooms are incredible. Also something, so then what's there, we come into the broths. Like the ideal thing is to have things that are cooked for a long time so that they're easy to digest, you know. So you're also with the mushrooms, like if you know, if you cook them for a longer time, their nutritions are going to be more available. So you're going to want to do that. Eggs are also really good, you know, if you have availability to like organic eggs and you eat eggs, like eggs is super good, and like the body really receives that well. And there was something else that I wanted to say. But that's also where, you know, with the digestion, that's where like the herbs really come in, and do a lot of magic. So let's go there.
All right. So when we talk about herbalism and postpartum, there's like two really important parts, right? There's the herbs that we use on a daily basis and we use like all the time, right? In our food, in our teas that we're taking kind of more consistently, more constantly. Um, for example, ones that like, seem really, really obvious, that all pregnant or all postpartum women should have at their homes is like ginger, of course, because as Wies was saying before, this warming energy, right? So it's going to bring that heat back into the body. So we're going to want things like ginger in our food, turmeric to help with inflammation, black pepper. Um, One of my favorites for postpartum is cinnamon because it has that warming, but it has such a sweetness to it, and that sweetness brings really energetically like that mother energy and that just like love, right? So it has like energetically a beautiful component to it as well. But cinnamon is not only warming, it's also slightly mucilagey, which like it doesn't have like a slime to it, but it has a little bit of like a gooiness when we let it sit. And so that is going to help to regenerate all the tissue, all the mucus linings of the body. So that's also going to be super beneficial during postpartum as well. And then mint, for example, or like mint family type of things, to have a little bit of like a cooling effect in the body because we always need to balance everything, right? So I recommend mints. I feel like a lot of women get like an uplift from the mint family, and we have maybe a little bit more presence or a bit more like concentration or lightness in our head because it can also start to get like cloudy, when you're in your bed for 40 days. So having mint as like this uplifting energy can be really nice. And then another herb is oregano. Oregano is one I recommend a lot during postpartum because it helps to clean out the uterus. So if there's any um blood bits, any whatever is left over in the uterus that needs to come out, the oregano is going to help the uterus contract back to its previous size, and it's going to help to kind of cleanse it out a little bit more. So oregano is a great herb to have during postpartum as well. And you can have it a little bit here, a little bit there, and kind of on and off regularly. And that's kind of the same for all of these herbs that I've mentioned until now. Oh, the other one that's like key, and in Costa Rica, we have the giant nettle, but in other places of the world, you could work with the regular, the small leaf nettle. So the scientific names of them are Urtica dioica is the small leaf nettle, and then the one that we have here is Urera basifera, which is the huge leaf nettle. And that one, it's actually funny because it's by most, you know, medicine practitioners, it's not recommended during pregnancy because it's also a diuretic and it can kind of activate contractions in some women. Although for a lot of women, like they accidentally drank it or they drank it not knowing that it could have that effect and had a totally fine pregnancy, including myself, you know. So there's a lot of women that drink it regularly during pregnancy and only afterwards hear that side of the story. So, you know, there's kind of a debatable topic there. But for safety reasons, you know, we don't recommend women to drink it during pregnancy. Um, but during postpartum, it's an amazing herb because it has a super anti-inflammatory property. So all that pain that Wies was talking about before with like the organs getting back into their place and, you know, the excess heat after the birth. And for some women, they might have, you know, some bone aches or like, you know, inflammation in the womb or in the vagina or in the vulva. And you know, all those things are in the cervix, and all those things we're going to want to take a lot of anti-inflammatory herbs. So the ortiga is a great one because it has that anti-inflammatory effect and it's slightly cleansing with the diuretics, but it's like a bomb of nutrition, right? It's like so nourishing and so full of minerals and so full of all the good stuff, the iron and all the stuff that you're going to need in the postpartum. So it's just amazing to have. And we make it sometimes for the women in the broths. So you could have it, you could have a medicinal broth, right? Or a medicinal like curry or a medicinal soup with all those herbs added in and mixed into your food already, right? Um, patties, like there's so you can get so creative, you know, and adding stuff into the food that you're making. And then of course there's other herbs that we're going to use more in like a medicinal way, right? If the woman is presenting a complication or if there's a complication with breastfeeding or for example the baby needs some support, um, we're always working with herbs ourselves to support that time, you know. And so there's things um like cuculmeca, which is another one of our, you know, number one postpartum herbs. And it's a root that is super red. And when you make the tea, it looks like blood, right? And so that for me is one of the first reasons it's like, yeah, that's like the postpartum herb, right? It's replenishing all that blood and you know, the postpartum time is a time where the woman is also energetically seeing herself in a way that she's never seen herself and like connecting to her body in a way that for many women it's the first time to be that like aware of your body. And so really having this herb that like looks like our blood. And for many women, you know, you can bleed between 2 and 6 weeks after pregnancy, and that being totally normal still, you know, really connecting to that element of like giving our bodily liquids as this service to humanity, you know, and that's what we're doing during postpartum, you know, through our breast milk, through our blood. And so really connecting to all of that, it's beautiful. And then of course the cuculmeca also has all its physical benefits of like being highly, highly nutritious. It works a lot with the hormonal system as well. So recently I've been studying a little bit about the effects that cuculmeca has, for example, on raising progesterone levels, which are going to be so key in like creating the ideal space for, you know, the oxytocin to be at its maximum level, for prolactin, which is necessary for, you know, for healthy breastfeeding to be at its maximum. And so all these hormones are related to each other. And cuculmeca is one of the plants that's just going to give us like that up of all the hormones that we need during postpartum. So it's like the number one, you know, with Salud Salvaje, we sell it as a tincture. And that's kind of the easiest way to take it also during postpartum, because sometimes there's no one there to make a tea for you or, you know, whatever at the moment that you want to have it. So we always have the tincture next to mama's bed as well, and they can just drop it into their glass of water and have that, and so that's been, I think, a big help. Also, the fact that it's a root, it has this like deep grounding effect. And so with postpartum also, we tend to go into the mind. Some women can have like some imbalance in like getting too in the mind and thinking and what if I'm not good at this? What if I don't know how to do this? What if, I'm not changing the diaper right? What if something happens to me? What if, and we go into the mind and the mind and the mind and the mind, and having these plants like ginger, which is also a root, like the cuculmeca, that's a root, to really bring us back into the earth, into the body, into the present moment. Like, okay, quiet the mind, and be here, be present, and so the cuculmeca and ginger does that as well. And then, of course, with that, we have also the use of different calming herbs, right? So we use passiflora, juanilama, and clitoria as well. So the blue butterfly pea. All of those are some of our favorite herbs also to share with mothers. Some mothers have like, weird thoughts or weird visions or nightmares or yeah, like imbalance in their nervous system. And it's really important, I think, also to talk about that, because women think, and this is like this modern conception of like, oh, but I should be happy and like everything went well, like the baby's healthy, I'm healthy, everything's good. Why am I feeling sad, or why am I feeling this or what? And so we shut it up, we don't share it, we don't talk about it, and instead we're just, sitting with our thoughts. And we could get a lot of help for that. Like, well, we're going to talk a little bit later about, rituals and self-care, but with herbs as well, like these kind of herbs, like the nervous system calming herbs are going to be super key to support women that are having, you know, um, weird or negative thoughts that they know aren't coming from, from themselves, but are maybe like a external thing or our fear that's projecting somewhere or wherever it's coming from, but that we can deal with them, and that the moment we talk about them as well, we take away a lot of their power. I remember working with a woman that she was seeing herself throw her baby out of the window, and she was like, but I love my baby. Like, why am I having this vision? But she kept having that vision. And, so really after a while, talking it through, just the talking about it for her was like enough to like it be gone the next day, but she had been having it for like a week before she told me about it because she was embarrassed and she didn't want to tell anyone. And, that whole story. And so, we gave her some herbs to help with sleeping better, and we gave her some calming herbs, and, and the next day she was like, okay, I'm like out of it. It's fine. Like it's done. Um, so, those are kind of stories that, it's important to know how much herbs can support us. And I want to talk about herbs again a little bit when we get into rituals and stuff, because we can use a lot of herbs during the rituals and during the self-care. But with food specifically, it's these warming herbs, it's the cleansing herbs, it's the nourishing herbs to really make sure that, we get really, really healthy and strong.
Mentioning another thing that we recommend and that we offer for postpartum is body work. So massage is like super important because you're going to be sitting, breastfeeding, and like we were saying before, sitting in like positions for a really long time. And also like so much movement happening in the womb and in the hips, so we really recommend relaxing massages. This can also be done, by anyone that's close to you, just receiving, some loving touch is like really good, really important to like feel supported, to feel loved. You're giving and giving so much. So it's like having someone gift some loving energy to you is like super, super good. And what we use a lot as well, which is from Mexican traditions specifically, is the rebozo. So that's like a big cloth where we can like hang the woman's hips and womb in, and we'll like lift her up and move the womb around and move the hips around, and that really releases a lot of tension in the lower back. And also using that to like swing the legs, there's a lot of different techniques, but like relaxing the hip area is like super important. And like you can do that also with light stretching. So apart from massage, which if you have someone around that can, like a massage therapist that you can have visit you, that's ideal. And if not, people that are close to you. But the other thing is like light stretching, maybe when baby's asleep, like right before you resting, like taking a moment, to just like relax the shoulders and move the hips a little bit. Like that's going to be super vital and super helpful. So that's just a little bit about awareness of the body.
Yeah, so we love to talk about ritual as a part of the postpartum time, and it's very interesting because when we go and accompany the women that we support during the postpartum, very often you can see, one woman might need, for example, some of the most common, I would say, rituals that we use during postpartum is like yoni steaming or sitz bath, depending on, right, the physical situation of the woman. So it could be yoni steaming, sitz bath, or like a full herbal bath for the whole body, which here in Costa Rica, most of us don't have bathtubs. So what we do is we put up a bucket with the tea, with the blend of whatever the herbs are, and the woman sits on a little bench in the shower and um, pours the tea or pours the herbal blend all over her body in that way. And then another one is, for example, with, incense or smudging, so energetically cleansing the space. Um, and well, a big ceremony that we offer the women that we accompany is the closing of the bones ceremony, right? Which is after the 40 days, or it can even be, we really like to do it. I don't know, from our personal experience, we really like to do it at the 3 month mark because postpartum is kind of a lot longer than, 40 days. So giving the woman that little bit of extra time of integrating, okay, going from being newly postpartum to like integrating slowly back into life and then doing the closing of the bone ceremony. I've personally really, really enjoyed it that way. And so the closing of the bone ceremony is where we use those same scarves. And after, steaming the woman completely from head to toe, and Wies does amazing body work and massage on the woman before. And then once she's all warmed up, we wrap her in these cloths and we make them really tight, right? And so she looks like a mummy, pretty much like an Egyptian mummy. And we wrap her up really nice and close. And that gives her time. And the concept is really to bring the physical bones, back to their place, but really closing energetically that space that was open during the birth time and, bringing it all back to um, like being yourself again, right? And being, I mean, again, I can't say again because you're always going to be different. Like after birth there's no going back, right? But like coming as close as you can in that moment to like your own essence and integrating that new aspect of yourself, integrating that mother role that now gets added to your past self, and integrating all those bits and bringing them back, right? So I always see the birth as like this expansion of like, all the energy goes out and we might like lose some of our pieces, some of our bits of ourselves. And so the postpartum time is that like, like, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, this is part of me too, and bringing it back and repiecing ourselves together. And then during the closing of the bones ceremony, saying like, yeah, this is me, right? And really coming back. But other than that, we have the yoni steaming, which is really, really beautiful. The herbal bathing we've done with cacao, which is such a beautiful, beautiful experience for mothers. I especially see mothers who tend to have this, like, I feel great. Yeah, everything's great. And, you know, I'm so happy. My baby's so healthy and I'm doing great and everything is great. And they're kind of stuck in like that narrative that everything is great. And you can even see them like have their eyes a little bit more open than, you know, than normally. And they're in this like just obsessiveness of how good it is. And then we do something like this, like the yoni steam or the bath or whatever, and they melt. They melt, they cry, they release, and then all of a sudden, once they come out of it, they can, you know, step into this like, oh yeah, yeah, it's great and it's hard and it's beautiful and I'm so grateful and I'm so tired, but they come into more of like a realistic perspective of all the facets that it is, you know? So it's like kind of getting rid of that false positivity that some of us can have also during the postpartum time, right? And for the opposite side as well, for the women that are, you know, oh my God, this is so hard. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I'm not sleeping at all. The baby's crying all the time. Blah, blah. I didn't expect it to be this difficult. And you give them the steam or you give them the bath and especially the cacao. It's so heart opening, you know, it's like amazing. So, and then they come out of it like, oh, yeah, oh, I see. Yes. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's tiring, but it's also amazing and beautiful. And like, look at all the support I have and la 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 la. So it's a very like emotionally balancing experience, right? Um, and I mean, I want to kind of tie it in, if that's okay, Wies, for you, to tie it into what the last thing we're going to talk about, which is the self-care habits of mothers, you know, and I see this a lot with women that, you know, have a big self-care practice before they get pregnant with their first child. And it's amazing, you know, to see these powerhouses that just, you know, I journal and I do yoga and I do this and I do that and I take care of myself and my smoothies and I'm so hyper independent and like, you know, taking care of myself is my priority and da da da. And then you have a baby. And like, then what? Right? And so it's hard. It's hard to make yourself a priority in that space. And it's hard to have time to make yourself a priority, to have mental space to make yourself a priority. And at the same time, it is so vital, right? So it's one of the biggest things that's like so confusing. And it's really funny because right now, I'm studying psychology and um, I'm writing an investigation, like a research paper on using a gratitude journal for mompreneurs, for mothers who are also entrepreneurs. And one of the things that's coming up for a lot of these mothers is the balance between personal life, family life, and work life. Like that's one of the biggest challenges that mothers face, right? And it's just so interesting because, of course, bringing that back to postpartum, right? Maybe if you're lucky, you don't have to worry about work life, but you still have to worry about the balance between family, between baby, between personal, right? And so this concept of balancing, it's like mind-blowing to look at. And so understanding that tiny little things like taking a shower alone, like maybe you're not going to get a full 1 hour yoga routine. I mean, I doubt you're going to get a full 1 hour yoga routine. Not just maybe not, but most probably not. Like most probably you're going to have to conform with, as Wies was saying, a short stretch right before laying down, right? And that's not just for the first month. We're talking about the first years, right? The first years. Its priority is the needs of your child. They're screaming. Like you need to attend them first, right? And so attending them first and then you come second, okay, fine, perfect. But then making sure that you create the space for your needs to be met. And like I was saying, so maybe you're not going to get that 1 hour of yoga, but you can really plan with your partner, plan with someone who's visiting, plan with someone like, hey, I need a 5-minute shower. Can you watch the baby who's sleeping right now while I shower in case the baby wakes up? Right? Like, and then you have that 5-minute shower, and it's like your life is back. Your life is back. Everything is good again. Everything that was not good before that shower is good again. That's the self-care you need. And so in the postpartum, your world shrinks. Your world becomes this tiny, tiny bubble of you and your baby and your partner and, the few people that are around. And that's it. And then every month, every year, it grows a little bit again and it starts to expand a little bit again. And my youngest right now is 5 years old. And like, I've been going to yoga classes, something I hadn't done in 10 years because I had, one and then the next and then the next. And so I'm all of a sudden, I have time to put on earrings. Like, I had 10 years of never wearing earrings. And I got to a place where I identified my habit or my life as a woman that didn't wear earrings because I didn't have the time for it. What did I have the mental space to put on earrings? No. I was attending three small children. But now my youngest is 5, and all of a sudden I can see the light, and I'm like, oh, wow, I can go into the bathroom and like massage my face for a little bit, put on my earrings, do my thing. And because my kids are getting more independent. So I always really like to say that make sure that you create time that's real with the expectations of your baby at that moment, right? Like your baby's not going to be 1 month old for a long time. So during that month, a shower is going to be like the great self-care that you need at that moment. And that's going to change as your baby grows up and you're going to get more and more time again as the baby gets bigger. But putting expectations that you're going to have lots of time for self-care is setting yourself up for failure. And completely forgetting your self-care is also going to make you feel emotionally drained, right? So making sure you have spaces to say, okay, once a month, I'm going to do a yoni steam and my partner's going to have the baby. Or once a month, I make space to do this or that, or, and yeah, just really making sure that you put on your earrings once in a while or get nicely dressed or go to the bathroom. I mean, we always joke as mothers, and that's a joke that nobody else gets. But like, when was the last time you went to the toilet alone? And then when someone says, yeah, yesterday, it's like, whoa, good on you. Like celebrate that moment, And those are kind of the mom inside jokes, but it's real. It's real. And so really celebrating those moments where we get to be with ourselves for a second, where we get to journal, where we get to whatever self-care practice is really, fits you and fits your lifestyle and fits your preferences, but really making sure that we create tiny, tiny moments during the day to have that. And I don't know if Wies wants to add something to that as well.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, such good advice. All of it. I love it all. And yeah, I'm the type of woman that has a really long self-care ritual because I have a really regenerative lifestyle where I don't take calls more than just like twice a week and for work, and I have lots of space. And so I know my life is going to completely change. And that is why we have waited so long, is just because I felt like I wasn't quite ready to to really, dedicate my entire life to a child. And now I'm feeling like ready, and I'm taking advantage of the last few days and weeks of I do birth ball exercises and go on a walk alone in the river and pray to the grandmother tree and just have a little alone time. So I'm cherishing that because I know it's not going to happen so much. But I do have a really supportive partner, and my father is coming to live in a cabin next door to us. So it will be beautiful to have beautiful support systems and such. But yeah, the mama's the one with the breasts and the milk. So No one can help like the mama, right?
Yeah,
The mama's the
absolutely.
one the baby wants. But yeah, I think just like also really remembering that even those tiny moments are enough, you know. Like I think the most important thing is about getting into that space. It's about showering consciously. You know, it's not about, oh, I'm just showering. No, I'm showering. Like I'm showering. And
Mhm.
I'm putting on my earrings. Like,
Ah,
hello, me. I'm putting on my earrings. You know,
mhm.
I'm not just randomly putting on my earrings. No, I'm putting on my earrings. And this is a moment that I'm like giving myself that beauty and that love. So,
Mm.
like, even if it's even less than a minute, you know, even if it's 30 seconds, I think it's a lot about like stepping into that awareness that even those tiny acts are acts of self-love that are going to change everything.
Oh,
So, yeah, I
yes.
think that.
Yeah, and I also just want to share one thing just from what you're sharing, Jean, that's so beautiful is like how amazing to also then allow our children to slowly, and of course, I mean, this is not immediate postpartum, but just as a reflection to take with us is like those habits and those self-care practices and those things that we do, honoring the Mother Earth, praying, spending time in nature, being outside, stretching, singing, whatever it is, those are practices that as our kids observe us having these practices, we're really creating a new humanity as well. Like we're creating this society and this humanity that like feels safe to do things for themselves, to take care of themselves, to take care of their loved ones, to take care of the earth, to take care, to make feeling a priority, to be in touch with themselves, to study themselves, to reflect on themselves, to know themselves, and all these things. So, like those habits, even if they're not going to be things that you're going to be practicing all that much, in the first months, it's so valuable because it's going to change uh, the DNA in your children. It's going to change the habits that they're going to be creating for themselves as they grow up, So I think it's amazing to also really be conscious of that. Like V says, when you're putting on your earrings, it's not like, oh, I have to do the, tuk tuk, or I have to brush my hair, so I brush it really quickly, but really taking that moment to say, okay, I'm like detangling and I'm sitting with my thoughts and I'm taking care of myself and all of that, or journaling or whatever it is, and really doing it with intention because that's where we're teaching the new generation, like to do things with intention and to really, be present with what they're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I feel like this was amazing wisdom sharing of so much and or a little bit of herbalism and holistic health and postpartum and yeah, the way we birth our babies into this world and the first few months of attention and nurturing it shapes their entire life. And so it's so important, especially as we are wanting to be the seeds of change in the world. We're wanting to really, make change through our own actions, and the children are our future and our next generation. So I feel like this is a really important topic to touch on as we talk about all the topics of regeneration. This is a very important topic of regenerating in all ways. So we hope that this episode of Regenerate Your Reality webinar series really touches you and the wisdom that you need to hear in this time, in this moment, especially if you are nearing the postpartum time in your life or supporting friends through it. It's such a beautiful process. And yeah, my baby's just like almost there. So yes, we're sending so much love to you all.